Unsee. I woke up this morning thinking the situation in the Middle East was cooling down, but within minutes everything flipped. A ceasefire that was supposed to prevent war was already cracking. Gunfire in one of the world's most critical waterways. And behind the scenes, powerful leaders were making moves that could change everything overnight. What I'm about to tell you feels less like diplomacy and more like a countdown. I woke up this morning thinking the situation in the Middle East was cooling down, but within minutes everything flipped. A ceasefire that was supposed to prevent war was already cracking. Gunfire in one of the world's most critical waterways. And behind the scenes, powerful leaders were making moves that could change everything overnight. What I'm about to tell you feels less like diplomacy and more like a countdown. As I kept following the story, things started to feel even more tense, almost like both sides were testing each other without fully crossing the line. See, I noticed how control over that narrow waterway the Strait of Hormuz was becoming the center of everything. It wasn't just about ships anymore, it was about power. From what I gathered, there were bold claims being made. One side was signaling that they had full control over the region, almost like they were drawing a line and daring anyone to cross it. And that kind of statement, it's not defensive, it's strategic. Because if you can control a route that carries a massive portion of the world's oil supply, you're not just influencing a conflict, you're influencing the global economy. That realization made everything feel heavier. Then I came across another detail that really stood out. Multiple vessels had already been forced to turn back. Think about that for a second. Ships don't just change course for no reason. That only happens when the risk becomes too real to ignore. So now I'm sitting there connecting the dots. A fragile ceasefire, gunfire reports, control claims over a critical choke point, and ships backing off. This wasn't stability. This was pressure building, layer by layer. And at the same time, both sides were pushing narratives. One side was saying, we're in control, we're holding back. The other side was making it clear, we're ready if this escalates. That balance, it's dangerous. Because when both sides believe they have the upper hand, that's usually when things start to break. And I couldn't shake the feeling that what we were seeing wasn't the peak of the situation. It was just the setup. At this point, I started noticing something that made the situation feel even more real. It wasn't just words anymore, it was movement. While all these statements were being made publicly, behind the scenes, things were shifting fast. I came across reports that additional military transport planes were being sent into the region, and that changed everything for me. Because when you see that kind of movement, it's not about if something might happen. It's about being ready when it does. That's when I realized this wasn't just pressure or posturing anymore. This was preparation. At the same time, I kept seeing more aggressive messaging coming from the other side, not just confidence, but warnings about what they could do if pushed further. They were talking about holding the advantage, about having options they hadn't even used yet. And one detail really stuck with me, the idea that they could disrupt oil production on a massive scale. If that actually happened, we wouldn't just be talking about a regional conflict anymore. We'd be looking at something that could shake economies worldwide. And what made it even more intense was how it was being framed. It wasn't like, we're going to do this right now. It was more like, we can do this whenever we decide. That kind of uncertainty, it creates fear without even taking action. So now I'm looking at the full picture military buildup on one side, strategic threats on the other, ceasefire that's barely holding together, and it started to feel like both sides were holding back, but only just enough, like they were waiting to see who makes the first real move. And the more I followed it, the clearer it became this situation wasn't calming down, it was tightening. By now, I wasn't looking at this as just another political situation anymore. It felt like something much bigger was quietly unfolding. Because when I put all the pieces together, one thing became impossible to ignore. This entire situation was balanced on a single decision. On one side, there was clear preparation, positioning, movement, readiness. On the other side, there were calculated warnings, signals of power, but also restraint. And right in the middle of all this were negotiations. That's what really caught my attention. Because while everything else looked like it was moving toward escalation, Talks were still being planned, still being pushed forward, almost like a final attempt to control what might be coming. But here's the part that stayed with me the most. The messaging had shifted. It wasn't just about pressure anymore. It was about consequences. I started hearing stronger statements, clear lines being drawn. Not suggestions, not warnings, but outcomes. The kind of language that tells you this isn't just strategy anymore, it's a decision point. And when things reach that stage, history has shown us something important. Either everything de-escalates at the last second, or it moves faster than anyone expects. That's why this moment feels different. Because both sides seem ready, both sides believe they have the advantage, and neither side looks like they want to step back first. So now, the question isn't just what's happening. It's, what happens next? Because if those talks succeed, this could all slow down. But if they fail, everything we've seen so far might just be the beginning. And honestly, that's the part I can't stop thinking about. Thanks for your time. Goodbye.